Picture this. In 2025, your smartphone vibrates with a notification. Your electric car hums along the highway, and a fighter jet soars overhead, all powered by invisible threads of rare earth elements. Res. These 17 metallic wonders, from neodymium to dysprosium, are the unsung heroes of modern technology. But here's the stark reality. China controls over 70% of global remining and 90% of refining, wielding them like a geopolitical scepter. As trade wars escalate and supply chains strain, the United States is turning to the ocean's abyss for salvation. Deep-sea mining is unjust an engineering marvel. It is a desperate race to break free from Beijing's grip, promising trillions in hidden riches, but risking Earth's final frontier. Let's plunge into this high-stakes showdown. China's iron fist on rare earths. China's dominance in res didn't happen by accident. It's the result of decades of strategic mastery. Since the 1980s, Beijing has poured state resources into mining, processing, and innovation. Since the 1980s, Beijing has poured state resources into mining, processing, and innovation, turning what others saw as unprofitable dirt into a weapon of economic and military power. By 2025, China accounts for 69% of global mining production and 90% of separation and refining capacity. This monopoly extends to downstream products like neodymium iron-boron magnets, where China holds an 87% market share, essential for everything from EV motors to wind turbines. The numbers are staggering. In 2024, China exported just 17,700 metric tons of rematerials worth $170.3 million, with Japan and the US as top buyers. But it's the heavy dysprosium, terbium, and yttrium that give China its edge, producing up to 99.9% of the world's supply. These elements are mined almost exclusively in China and Myanmar, then refined in Beijing's facilities, creating a choke point no other nation can easily bypass. Beijing's control is enforced through quotas. State-owned enterprises like China Rare Earth Group, and the negative list for market access, which restricts private investment without provincial approval. In July 2025, new interim measures tightened monitoring of mining and production volumes, ensuring compliance with assigned quotas. This isn't just business, it's a whole-of-government strategy involving the Communist Party, military, and industry, as mapped out in a 2025 Atlantic Council report. China's Belt and Road Initiative further extends this influence, securing foreign deposits while subsidizing domestic operations. The geopolitical weapon. Leverage in trade wars. China's supremacy is no passive market force, it's a deliberate tool for leverage. In April 2025, responding to 54% U.S. tariffs under the Trump administration, Beijing imposed export restrictions on 7 heavy res: samarium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, lutetium, scandium, and yttrium. This halted shipments, forcing U.S. and European firms to shutter production lines and scramble for alternatives. The move echoed past tactics, like the 2010 export block to Japan amid a fishing dispute, and has been called blackmail by EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. By 2025, this dominance intersects with broader tensions. China processes 85% of global res, including nearly half of U.S. production, giving it asymmetric power in tech restrictions and trade negotiations. A June 2025 London agreement eased some curbs, but only after re-access became a bargaining chip. For the U.S., this vulnerability threatens national security. Res power fighter jets, radar systems, and precision-guided munitions. Germany's defense industry, for instance, faces strict documentation regimes, sharing sensitive data with Chinese importers. As one analyst notes, China's monopoly reshapes economic and political power, forcing Washington to soften decoupling efforts. The U.S. response: eyes on the abyss. Faced with this stranglehold, the U.S. is racing to diversify, and deep-sea mining emerges as a game-changer. The ocean floor holds polymetallic nodules, cobalt-rich crusts, and seafloor massive sulfides teeming with nickel, cobalt, copper, manganese sand, crucially, traces of res like neodymium and dysprosium. The Clarion-Clipperton Zone, CCZ alone, could yield 21 billion tons of nodules worth $8 trillion, potentially supplying 15% of global demand by 2026. In April 2025, President Trump signed an executive order titled Unleashing America's Offshore Critical Minerals and Resources, fast-tracking exploration, licenses under the Deep Seabed Hard Mineral Resources Act. This directive, aimed at countering China's influence, streamlines permitting through NOAA and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, while boosting investment in deep-sea tech. The White House plans a federal strategic reserve of seabed-sourced REEs, creating a market for firms like the metals company TMC, which applied for U.S. commercial recovery permits in March 2025. Via its U.S. subsidiary, TMC's robotic harvesters, tested in the CCZ, could collect thousands of tons annually, bypassing ISA delays. Billionaires and allies are all in. TMC's Gerard Barron and investors like Norway's Kongsberg are funding AI-driven selective harvesting to minimize environmental harm. The U.S. is partnering with Japan, whose Minamotorishima deep-sea project targets re-rich mud with a 50-50 heavy-to-light ratio superior to China's deposits. This collaboration, part of the Strategic Innovation Promotion Program, includes stockpiling and recycling to de-risk supply chains. Congress is debating seabed mining policies, with the July 2025 CRS report highlighting geopolitical stakes. Technology and the deep-sea frontier, extracting reefs from 4,000 to 6,000 meters down, requires cutting-edge tech. TMC's crawler robots vacuum nodules via riser pipes, while autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs from Japan, map deposits with sonar. AI optimizes operations, analyzing real-time data to target high-yield retraces in nodules and crusts. The U.S. executive order mandates enhanced coordination for these innovations, positioning America as a leader in responsible seabed development. Yet REEs aren't the primary deep-sea target. Nodules focus on cobalt and nickel for batteries, but future efforts may pivot, as reserves could meet doubling demand by 2040. Proponents argue this unlocks Earth's last frontier, but critics warn it's a false promise, as land reserves suffice. Environmental shadows in the depths. The race comes with peril. Sediment plumes from mining could smother marine life for miles, persisting years per a 2025 Nature study. The CCZ's dark oxygen nodules, producing O2 chemically, host unique ecosystems at risk of extinction. Noise, light, and carbon release threaten biodiversity and climate goals. Over 30 nations, including France, call for an ISA moratorium, but U.S. unilateral moves via TMC risk a Wild West scenario. Greenpeace's 2025 report labels it reckless exploitation. The billionaire bet in future stakes. Billionaires see deep-sea REEs as the ultimate hedge. TMC's $1 billion raise in 2025 fuels sustainable tech, attracting defense investors betting on U.S. dominance in green and military tech. By 2030, demand could quadruple, but alternatives like recycling might suffice if scaled. The U.S.-China rivalry intensifies. Beijing leads ISA contracts, while Washington bypasses unclosed, potentially eroding global rules. Conclusion: breaking the chains or sinking deeper. In 2025, China's RE-dominance, 70% mining, 90% refining, fuels a shadow war, with the U.S. diving into deep-sea mining via executive orders, TMC partnerships, and Japan alliances to reclaim independence. This trillion-dollar race promises technological sovereignty, but gambles with fragile ocean ecosystems. Will it shatter Beijing's monopoly or unleash unintended chaos? The stakes couldn't be higher for wealth, power, and the planet. If this tale of hidden treasures and global gambles captivates you, dive deeper. Like if you're Team Ocean Frontier, comment your thoughts on the U.S.-China clash, and subscribe for more uncovers on the battles defining tomorrow's riches.